I'm a producer and I am always in need of samples. I can't tell you how many times I'm in the middle of a production, I'm in the middle of a songwriting session, and someone needs a specific sound, whether it's an 808, a fill, or something along those lines. I need to find it, and I need to find it fast. But I can't tell you how hard it is to wrap your head around creating that. What if you have an amazing idea and you just don't have the right sounds? That can actually stump your creativity. In comes Splice. When I first discovered Splice absolutely saved my life. Splice is a company that basically sells all kinds of things when it comes to music, but they're very much known for their samples. That's how I discovered them. And after I discovered them, I started using their sample libraries like crazy. They have everybody. And at this point, they have almost everybody with their own sample packs, creating unique sound design and all these bunch of samples so that you can use in your own production style. Just to give you an example, here's how one of them sounds. Do you like that? Check out this one. These are sounds that are designed so that you can produce quickly and you can just drag and drop. And when you have a creative idea, you just get ready to go. And that is because Splice Sounds is the destination for millions of royalty-free samples, loops, sound effects, and presets. Choose a monthly plan that works for you, starting at $7.99 a month. Personally, I use the second option, which is a little bit more a month, but you get more points. In my opinion, that's a little bit more bang for the buck. But hey, for $7.99 a month, you're going to have access to tons of amazing samples. So don't waste time on this. This is a great deal. No matter what level you are, whether you're a professional producer, whether you're an aspiring producer, Splice is a must tool set for anyone who's taking this seriously, and I could not recommend them anymore. So if you're interested, go ahead and visit splice.com/sounds. You can also click the link in the episode's description. That'll take you directly to their website where you can go ahead and sign up, browse all of their sound packs. I guarantee you it'll take you 5 minutes and you'll instantly fall in love with what they have to offer. All right, what is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here once again, and welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast. This is your host, and I already said that. You can tell I'm a little frazzled today. I gotta preface this conversation because this is pretty funny. You know, I'm very grateful that I have tons of people to help me put this show on, but today it was a bit of a kerfuffle. It was a busy day, and the person that I'm gonna have on the show is across the globe. And normally we double check our times. We make sure that we have everything set in stone so everything runs smoothly. Today was not one of those days. I was an hour off. So my man where I'm about to bring on, he's been waiting very patiently for about 30 minutes to hear from me, and I just feel so terrible. But you've made it easy on me, man. You've made it so easy on me. You make me feel comfortable, and I'm so happy. And I'm very, very honored to introduce our guest today. Blanke is joining us on the show. How are you doing, man?
What's good, man? I'm doing really well, dude. I'm back home, and I'm thriving.
He's back home. You're out in Australia, right?
Yeah, back in Australia at the moment. Back in my hometown in Canberra.
Oh, wow. Where is that at? Like in terms, because here's the thing. I'm not very well educated when it comes to geography. I'm from America. And all I know from Australia is I see Sydney and I see this giant continent and I don't know anything else around it. Where exactly is your town?
So geographically, Canberra is the nation's capital. Just FYI, if anyone who wasn't, it's not actually Sydney. Sydney is just our biggest city. But Canberra is like 3.5 or 3 hours sort of south west from Sydney drive.
Oh, wow. 3.5 hours. So kind of like, I mean, I live in Los Angeles in California. So for us, that's probably like driving to, what's 3.5 hours away? I don't know.
I'm trying to think of what's similar.
Maybe Fresno-ish.
Maybe.
Have you ever been there?
So if you were to go like from LA to San Francisco, that would be the distance of, actually no.
Because that's about 6 hours. That's like 5.5 to 6 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the distance of Canberra to Melbourne. I was going to say Sydney to Melbourne, but I think that's a bit longer from Sydney to Melbourne. And then I was going to say Canberra's like a little, like sort of midway-ish, but it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say where exactly it is. I'm trying to think of a comparison for that.
Well, I appreciate you trying to explain more of that geography. I'm really, really happy that I get to catch you because you're a very busy man. To kind of give you guys a little bit of a backstory of what we've got going on here, Blanke, you just got to Australia maybe about 2 weeks ago or so, right? And you've been in maybe a little bit longer, but you've been quarantined yourself because you've been here in the States, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then now you're preparing to do a live stream today, which, by the time this is out, that live stream would have already happened.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious when it comes to the difference between your experience in the U.S. and what you're experiencing right now in Australia. I'm curious, like, what do you see in terms of what's going on in both our countries? Because, I mean, we're still technically kind of on a lockdown. Maybe it's kind of somewhere in the middle. But I'm not so sure what's going on in Australia. Like, is it very different over there right now?
Yeah. So in America, it's different. It's hard to, yeah. So in LA, we're very much like in this half-assed lockdown thing that's kind of slowly opening back up, and I think it's the same narrative all over America at the moment. And like some states are already opened up, and it's like nothing's really like there's nothing's going down as such. I mean, it is kind of like things are sort of getting a little bit more under control, but there's still thousands of cases every day in LA. You know what I mean? Like I've got that Citizen app, and I keep seeing it pop up, and I'm like, far out, man.
Damn.
So like where in LA, I remember when I first came to Sydney, I went outside and I had my mask on, and my manager was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" It's because in LA we're still like you can't leave the house without a mask. We're still in that stage, but in Australia and stuff, we're very much kind of past that. In my hometown in Canberra, we've got like no cases, so
Wow.
we like nipped it in the butt pretty quickly earlier on, I think, and yeah, so it's very much like sort of under control. Melbourne and which is in Victoria, which is down sort of south central of Australia. That had a pretty bad run for a while, and they're still dealing with a few things. They're still in a pretty heavy lockdown. I think they're doing like a 20-kilometer radius. You can't really like leave or something. They were at a 5-kilometer radius for ages. Like you couldn't go outside for that far away from your house and all that kind of thing. So it was all pretty hectic. But it's pretty chill here at the moment. We have like when you go out to cafes and stuff, you have to like do this QR scanning thing. And you kind of like sign in to everywhere that you go. So we've got you can track where people are. And so if we get a case, we can like, find out where they've been and all that kind of thing. So that's been really interesting to kind of come back home to. And I'm just glad I get to go to cafes again.
Wow. Wait, so there's like a little app that tracks to some extent, like whether you're infected or not? Is that what you're saying?
So yeah, so when say for example I was to go to a cafe today, I would they'd have a little like QR code, like one of those things where you like open your camera and you just like scan it, and then it takes you to a site on the internet, and you just type in like your name and your phone number and stuff, and pretty much that just it just kind of keeps track of where everyone's been. So say if I caught it, everyone at that cafe who was there on that day would be able to go and get tested or be aware of the fact that I was there and they may have come into contact with me. So yeah, it's kind of like,
wow.
It's not really an app as such, but it's just a way to sort of keep everyone sort of connected and aware of where we're at.
How's the feeling towards that? Because again, I'm born and raised here in the U.S. and I've been lucky to travel to many places, but obviously I know the attitude that we have here in the country, and just like I'm pretty sure you're aware of it since you kind of live out here a little bit.
Yeah.
How does that taken in a country like Australia? At least in what you see, do you feel like everybody around you is pretty much like a team player? Like they're all about it. Like they like this app and they use it without complaints. Like, is that what you see?
Yeah, I mean, because I haven't been here during the thick of it, I didn't really see the progression through it all. So I know in America it was kind of like we're very like resistant to things like that, I suppose. Some people are and some people aren't. It's this whole thing. Here it's kind of like, we just like, I don't know, we're doing really well, and I think the results are showing, and so we're just like, okay, that's fine. We're just going to continue doing this thing. Like it's whatever. Because it's obviously doing good. So it's I mean we in Canberra, for example, like I think there is like it's a big sort of family oriented kind of town, I suppose, because it's only say 400,000 people, and so it's like a big small town in a way, and so we're all pretty okay to work with each other to figure things out, and it's funny like coming back. I really like when I was younger, I was like I didn't really appreciate it that heavily, but now when I come back and I've been to other places, I've been to America and stuff, I like really appreciate what like my hometown really stands for and what it's like and how beautiful it is and like all the people and stuff. So it's funny coming back to it and be like, okay, this is good. I like it here. It's very like chilled out.
Interesting.
We all like to work with each other.
How long have you been in the States?
I moved in March last year. So not this year, but the
Oh,
year before. So about a year and a half, just over a year and a half.
gotcha. Did you go straight from Australia, or did you live somewhere else?
No, I went from straight from Australia. So I lived in Canberra for most of my life. Then I went to Sydney for a bit, for a few years, and then I went to LA.
Interesting. So when you
Yeah,
say that that you go back home now, you appreciate it. I feel like that's pretty common for most people. I think no matter where you go, there is
yeah,
this sense of home when you go back, and you just feel a little more like you understand it and you get it for what it is.
yeah.
In your opinion, is that? Do you feel like you'd ever go back? Do you ever feel like that's something that you long for, like to kind of when you want to spread your roots? Or do you feel or think that you're kind of like you appreciate it, but you're kind of done and you want to go somewhere else and stay somewhere
Yeah.
else?
It's an interesting question. That's what I've kind of been thinking about too. I think right now, because I've only been here for a few days, really, because I got out of quarantine and came here only like, yeah, maybe 3 or 4 days ago. Um, I'm still in the kind of honeymoon phase. And so I'm still like, everything's fucking amazing. And like, it's been like raining here for the past few weeks. And so everything's beautifully green. And like, it's just amazing right now to be here and just to experience what's going on compared to what's happening in America. And I think I'm very much in a kind of like a, yeah, this place is amazing type thing. I feel like there are times and places. I mean, there are times to be in certain places of like during your life. And right now, Canberra wouldn't be the place for me to be in to live,
Mm.
because obviously that's why I moved to Sydney. That's why I moved to LA, is for work, and for, expanding my career and all that kind of thing. And that's what those places have done. They've served their purpose, and LA and US will continue to serve that purpose later on. I think I could see myself coming back here later on. There are certain things that I want to do in my life in terms of like I want to get like a bit of land, and I want to have like a vegetable garden and like have a productive, live off the land type thing, and like
Oh,
have
it's beautiful.
um
I love
yeah, I
that.
want to do that kind of thing later on. Like I'm trying to set myself up now. My parents have a farm, like a 4 acre property out in the country, and I'm going to go there and sort of like help out with them and try build a productive garden, and maybe get some other like animals and stuff in and help them with that. So I'm really excited to do that kind of thing and maybe like get some experience there for later on. But yeah, so potentially, I mean, there are lots of places around America too that I find really beautiful and similar to this, that could be potential
Like which
places.
areas that you've been to?
Funnily enough, I like the one that sticks in my head is actually Oklahoma.
Oh no, that's a beautiful state, man.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it was just again so green, very open. I would drive past like houses that had a great bit of property and like some sort of livestock on there. Chickens would be running around, and I was like, this would be great for what I would want in the end. So I don't know, but I'm really loving Denver as well. Whenever I go there, I
Yeah,
get
it's
obsessed with the place.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Dude, I love your approach to life. I can already tell it just off of 7 minutes of talking to you. Like you seem very well grounded, and I love that. And not to say that artists aren't usually well rounded. I mean, I get to talk to all sorts of people, and anytime I meet someone who's a little, I wouldn't say relaxed. You just seem very content in a weird, interesting way, which I love. Like I mean, am I wrong? You seem kind of content.
Oh yeah, I mean I think I've always sort of been that way inclined, but especially recently, like as it's funny, your 20s and your mid 20s, as you go through them, it's like such a huge growing and changing period of your life, and I didn't really realize that until I'm 28 now, and I'm looking back going, yeah, shit, I've kind of like grown into myself a lot over this time. And I thought that was going to happen earlier on in my 20s. I thought I was me like a long time ago, but now I'm like, oh wow, there's like a lot that I've kind of learnt about the world and myself over that time period. And it's like kind of like I've come out the other side going, yeah, okay, I'm sort of a bit more relaxed and a bit more like into who I am now. And yeah, I don't know. It's been good getting into the whole like gardening thing and learning, like really appreciating like the earth and like meditating and getting in touch with my spiritual side and all that kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
I've been a big fan of that, and I think that's probably helped me become more grounded over that time.
Well, that's interesting. How long have you been interested in more grounding things, I guess I could say? Because you're not alone, by the way. This is something
Uh,
that I feel like I've been picking up myself personally. I don't get to talk about it a lot with people, but it is something that I've noticed as I keep my ear to the ground. I feel like there is this sort of interest across the board amongst creatives with more spiritual grounding things than at least in my generation's time, you know?
I agree. Yeah, no, totally. I feel like that's what I was wondering. I'm wondering if it is the fact that I'm getting older, and that's why I'm doing it, or whether it is just like, I mean, whether it is just like a general thing that everyone is sort of becoming more aware of.
Mm.
Because that's, I mean, it's 2020, and that's kind of like we're sort of into that kind of thing now. Like, as a, religion was a big thing like decades ago kind of thing, and I think slowly that's sort of shifting over a little bit here and there for people going, okay, like a more spiritual side seems to be more relatable for a lot of people now.
Yeah.
And so potentially that could be like, it's a more, I don't know, open and sort of effective approach to the world for them. So I don't know, but I've been sort of thinking about this for a few years now, like really taking it a bit more seriously, like the whole like meditating and all that kind of thing. We have all these apps and stuff now which help people do that, and I think that's really great because it helps, especially with this whole world of technology and having your phone like in your hand at all times and stuff like that. I think, and being fed so much information, I feel like it is so crucial that we take a step back and are able to like slow our minds down, because like the differences between, like, I always find it funny when I talk to people about it, and our grandparents, for example, will be able to remember like the scent of the flowers and the names of one of their friends back when like 50, 60 years ago, and I can't remember what I did yesterday. And it's like the amount, and like from the things that I've read anyway, the amount of information that we're being fed at the moment is like really screwing up our like long-term memory. And it's kind of like being able to put down the technology and put down the information every so often, I think is really like healthy for us to be able to do and step away from.
Yeah, no, and I love that. You're absolutely right. You're speaking a lot of truth here. What I'm curious about is how, because here's the thing, like what you're saying is absolutely true, and I completely agree. And it's something that I feel like I didn't stumble upon it. It was just, I kind of at some point got to the same point where you were at almost by accident. I don't know how to explain it, just depending on all the life choices that I made. For
Yeah.
you, do you feel like that's the same, like in this grounding area that you find yourself in, this interest in things that are a little more practical that help you as an individual, not even as just as a musician, but as a person? Do you find that you always were interested in being there, or was it something that you just kind of stumbled upon over the past couple of years after you kind of grew up a little bit?
No, I agree. I think it's definitely something that I've stumbled upon more so. It had been, I think I had a girlfriend before I moved to America, and she was very into that sort of thing, and she opened my eyes to a lot of different avenues for that. She definitely sort of opened me up to being more spiritual. She sort of introduced me to a more grounding lifestyle, and like showed me sort of like a few things in terms of gardening and like living more traditionally and like all that kind of stuff. And that just like fascinated the absolute hell out of me. That was like, I suppose, a timing thing, because that was maybe 4 years ago now. That
Damn,
she
dude.
sort of, she got me this book. It was called Grown and Gathered. I absolutely love the book. And it's like been my Bible since then. And it's kind of, it's like I said, it's like a book into like more traditional kind of living, and getting away from like so much of the industrial like processed kind of environment that we're in. And sort of it goes, it's a holistic approach to kind of living that way, in terms of like how to grow things from seed, how to do things like as organically as possible, like composting and like all that kind of stuff. And then also how to cook with what you've grown, how to preserve things. It also like how to hunt, like what kind of things you can.
How to hunt. Wow.
Yeah, well, like yeah, like not exactly like how to hunt, but like definitely has like a section of the book like addressing that, which is really interesting. So yeah, ever since I got that, I was like just unbelievably fascinated by it. And from there, I think is kind of where I looked more into that realm, and then sort of found more of the, meditation, and because she was definitely into that as well. And so yeah, it just, that I think I owe a lot to her for showing me that kind of world. And then it was just from there, I've obviously just dug deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah, shout out to her.
Yeah,
I've
she's a
had a
legend.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. I've had a very similar experience. The woman in my life is the person who definitely introduced that to me as well. Maybe not so much gardening, but like the whole
Sure.
meditation and grounding elements. And that's something that I desperately needed because I have a very busy brain. And for me, and I'm curious if you've experienced something similar, but at least for me, I remember the very first time that I felt like I had a breakthrough, so to speak. I remember that for years, I tried to meditate, dude. Like I tried so much and I tried so many different ways. Like people would give me pointers, I would read up on it online. I would hear other interviews or, people talking about it, clear your mind, whatever, and I never was able to find that, I guess, middle ground or whatever. And there was one time very recently, maybe like a year and a half ago to 2 years ago, where I decided to just F it. I'm going to try it my own way rather than just, whatever else in my mind. So I just sat there and my mind is pretty busy. So I just kind of allowed it to do its thing. And I kid you not, man, without getting too detailed, at some point I found a pattern. Like I found a breathing pattern that worked for me. It wasn't conventional, but it worked for me. And I sat there for like an hour and a half. Whoa. And my mind didn't necessarily go blank. I saw tons of colors. I felt tons of vibrations and energy. I know it sounds kind of weird. And once I came out of it, like I recognized at that point, like, oh my God, like I just experienced what some of those people are talking about, or at least something similar in my own way. I'm curious, did you ever have something like that? Or did you ever feel something similar, or maybe something along the lines of that?
That's epic, dude. I haven't, no, not in that sense, not that like sort of deeply, not to that extent by the sounds of it, but that sounds fucking great, to be honest. There have been times that I have, like kind of like fallen into a bit of a, like it is so personal. That's the cool thing about all this. I think like all the things that we get taught about this and about the, ways to meditate and all that kind of thing. It's, I think it's definitely just guidelines. I think you need to find your own sort of, as you say, patterns to kind of like work best for you. And I think I have found like one or two that have helped me kind of like fall into those patterns a bit easier. Because there have been times recently-ish, maybe like about a month ago, back when I was in LA, where I did fall into that as well. Like one morning, I kind of like went off the beaten path with the meditation that I was being like that I was listening to every morning, and I was just out for like half an hour, and I was like, oh man, this is where it's at. This is great, because like, as you say, you were just so clear and there was nothing else going on, and it's like you just feel very much at kind of peace, and you come out of it and you're like, wow, okay, that's the thing that we were talking about. Yeah.
And I love that you say that. This quickly became a spiritual podcast. That's so sweet. Well, no, I mean, I like to pick people's brains on different aspects because I feel like it all ties in together to what we do as musicians. And it's one of those things where I try my best to tell others about it, because to me it's been very life-changing. And granted, to be honest with you, like that moment of, kind of being in that trance and having this experience, that's a very rare experience. Like I think I've had it maybe once or twice more since then. And whenever I meditate, like I feel more at peace, more relaxed, but very rarely do I go into those like trances, But I just have to admit, like ever since that day, I remember that day, and I remember that it was like a life-changing day. Like my life has not been the same since. It hasn't been perfect, but it's definitely has taken a shift to a much better direction. I don't know. It sounds so cliche, you know what I mean? But I think it's important to talk about it at least.
Absolutely. I think so as well, because it's the same with me. It just has been so sort of life-changing in a subtle way, but definitely kind of life-changing in like in a lifestyle and wellness sort of way. There has been a couple of things that like I have stuck in my brain as well, that kind of got me like more onto this path. And one of those things, I don't know if you've heard of this guy called Wim Hof. No. I'm sure a bunch of people have. He's known as like the Iceman, and he's like Iceman. He's a fucking enigma. He's an amazing guy to like kind of follow. But basically, he's to put it simply, he's got this kind of one of the things he has is he's got this breathing technique that he's kind of found, and it's, if I ever want to get into like some sort of trance or some sort of like different whatever state, this helps so much, and because like this specific thing he's talking about is basically just like you kind of flooding your body with oxygen. So you do this breathing exercise where you breathe in really deeply and then like push it out and breathe in really deeply, and you're almost like you're hyperventilating yourself, and you do it like 35, 40 times. And then by the time you get there, like, halfway through, you'll have like your hands will be tingling, your like legs start tingling, like roof of my mouth starts tingling, all this kind of stuff, just because you're like
you're
flooding
referring to
body
like
with
breath work, right? Is that what you're
It's all
referring
breath
to?
work.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I've heard
And
about that.
yeah. And then at the end of that, you breathe out completely and just like hold your breath. And like, it's not like you have to force yourself, but like you just sort of hold your breath out. And each time you can do this like after like over like 3 rounds sort of thing. The first round, you'll easily be able to hold your breath for like a minute and a half. Second round, I got up to like 2 minutes, I think. And the third round, I could do like 2.5, 3 minutes of just like no breath.
Wow.
And so what he's sort of saying is like, you can, like, our bodies are capable of so much more than what we think they are. And this is one of those kind of things, is almost like a little demonstration to say, hey, we can hold our breath. We can like hold way more oxygen than what what our shallow breathing at the moment is kind of like leading us to be able to do. And during that time, it's the byproduct of all that is kind of like you become in this like state during that time. That minute and a half, that 3 minutes will fly by. Like it's insane. And I'm just kind of like somewhere else, and you like breathe in and you get this rush of oxygen, and then like you push it to your head sort of thing. It sounds weird, but you like push that to your head, and like it's you get like this sort of like rush of like DMT and stuff, he says, and like you can sort of see things for like 10 seconds, and it's wild, man. It's super wild. It's all from breathing, and I just found that to be so fascinating. And from there, I kind of like looked more into that again. But if anyone wants to check that kind of thing out, it's Wim Hof, like WIMHOF.
Wim Hof. For you, I could be wrong because maybe I'm understanding it differently, but I've read and I've heard from others that everybody has like a different reaction to it. Like you were saying, there might be some vibrations in your body or something. For you specifically, what do you experience when you're doing this?
So yeah, I have heard some people kind of react differently to it. Some people really don't like it too.
Yeah,
so
I've heard that too. I've heard some people get freaked out by it. It just depends on who you are.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like if you're kind of open to it, I mean, again, there's nothing, you're not taking drugs as such. So it's not like it's really like doing anything to you bad. So it should be, as far as I'm aware, it's fairly safe. Just don't do it when you're standing up or operating machinery. But like if you're lying in a bed type thing, like a few of the times I felt like I was floating because I couldn't feel anything underneath me sort of thing. Like you just become like kind of almost numb in a weird sense. And yeah, I don't know I like I say, I get tingly hands and feet and kind of legs. And after a while, yeah, if I go fully like sort of numb, yeah, then I can't feel the bed underneath me. And then you just like kind of breathe out and hold your breath. And I get in such a state of like peace during that time. And it's super nice. It's really, really nice to like just kind of sit in that. It's weird because like you'd think, if it's so good, like I do this every day, but it's oddly like not draining, but like kind of taxing, and it's not something you want to do every day.
Right.
But it's he says that it's also good for like elite athletes and stuff. Like a lot of these people do it before competitions to kind of like get themselves in this kind of zone and like make sure that their muscles are full of like full of oxygen, because apparently it rejuvenates and I'm gonna get all this wrong probably, but like it reoxygenates your muscles and blood level down to like a cellular level and all this kind of stuff. He rambles about it like crazy. So but it's I don't know, I love it. It's super interesting.
No, damn, dude, it seems like it's a huge mental workout too, to some extent.
Yeah.
Like I find that, and again, this is just based off my own research. I'm not an expert whatsoever, definitely not an expert, but the more I look into it, the more I find that like people that I've admired for a long time, legends in any industry, not even just music, but just in any industry, I find this pattern that there are many, many legends, not all of them, but many who practice very similar mental things, especially like with meditation and even breath work. Like it's interesting how the more you look into it, the more you find that people that have reached this sort of pinnacle of success in any industry know about it, have tried it, maybe do it religiously, maybe they don't do it, but like many people are like, like it's all about clearing the mind.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of funny. I had no anticipation going down this route, but I'm glad that you went down this route. It's true. Here's what I'm curious about, and I promise I'll tie it into some music stuff. Prior to you learning more about this spiritual stuff, Or maybe, who knows? We may not even talk about music. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm easy.
I love you, dude. I love this. Before you got into, or you were aware of a lot of the spiritual stuff, or even some of the meditation stuff that you're currently practicing now, how do you remember how you were in terms of your personality? Was your brain busier a little bit? Were you more on edge? Were you more anxious? Or were you still kind of relatively the same? That's one thing I'm always curious about, the before and after, because for me, I'm a huge polar opposite from what I was like before I meditated to who I am now. And I'm curious for you, what do you feel was the major differences before and after?
I've kind of thought about this too. I don't know. I feel like I'm definitely, I mean, maybe I am polar opposite, but I feel like it's definitely a subtle thing. And say, for example, I haven't meditated for the past week or two, maybe.
Mm.
And if I was to go, the way that I would notice is if I was to go back in and try and meditate and try and sit, or if I was just to sit and do nothing, that I can't do that. I need to practice that again. So to me, it's I know that when I do it, my brain and my mind is much more sort of focused and much more central and not as clouded and not as cluttered. But when I don't do it and I try to get back into that, then I'm okay, it takes me a minute to really get back in that flow and in that zone. And that to me means that, just during my day, I'm not giving myself time to stop and just focus on the kind of one thing better. Because it's I'm trying to think of whether it's there is a more kind of substantial difference in my life.
I mean, there might not be, honestly, because it sounds like you might just be a naturally grounded person.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
so
go ahead.
One of the things that was a big change for me as well. This is a whole nother. It ties into it, but it's a whole different thing. Is my diet, and how my gut. Because I've been learning about how the gut and your body is connected, and how amazingly influential it is on your body and what you eat and what we eat and all that kind of stuff. And I went to a naturopath or a homeopath a few years ago. And my sister was one day my sister was dude, you look like shit. And I'm okay, that's great. She's you need to go see Gail. And Gail is our naturopath. And she's she's changed my life and my mom's life and stuff like that. And so I went to see her, and she was because I was pale, I was depressed, and I was not a depressed kind of inclined. I was never that way inclined. I was never really that anxious. I had I was breaking out all the time, and I was 24, and I had never really broken out in my life.
When was
I was
this?
why is this happening?
How many years ago
now?
was this?
So this would have been 4 or 5 years ago, at least.
Gotcha.
Around that time. And so I went to see this naturopath, and she did her she tested me on things, and she didn't do any blood work or anything like that. She does this thing where it's hard to explain what it is, but it's done. It's electrode-y sort of. So she gets the pressure points on my fingers, and she prods it with this thing, and it gives it gives her computer a reading, right? And so depending on what pressure point and depending on what we're testing for, say I want to test for wheat, whether or not I'm sensitive or reactive to wheat or not. She'll put it in a computer, whatever, prod me with this thing on the pressure points on the tips of my fingers, and I'll get a reading. And if the reading is above or below 24 to 32, either side of that, respectively, is if I shows whether or not I'm reactive or sensitive to said thing. And so we did that for a bunch of different foods, and I found out I was sensitive and reactive to all this shit. And she and from there I was able to cut those things out of my diet, and then I was sort of more or less fixed, or I was at least aware of what these things were doing to my body and how they were affecting me.
That you had to cut
so
out?
mainly it was processed stuff. It was white bread, white and processed wheat, same with white rice. As soon as I cut those two, because I was eating fairly cleanly back then. I thought I was having white rice with chicken and greens and stuff like that. And because that rice was wreaking havoc on my body. Rice is apparently one of the more reactive foods. You know, your
Really?
body's like kind of, yeah, for a lot of people anyway, not all people obviously, but like for a lot of people, it's a problematic food. Especially white rice. If like I can have wild rice, which is like completely untouched, like not processed, hasn't been like sprayed with whatever, and I can eat that and I'm fine. But white rice, like, yeah, I'll have pimples the next day type of thing. It's crazy.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and so there was a bunch of other things. Because I was a DJ, and obviously alcohol was like a big thing, and I didn't abuse alcohol, but because I was like DJing and doing all
Yeah,
and
you're in the
partying and doing all
scene.
that stuff,
You're in the scene.
a lot of us were like, you know, drinking and like days like during the week, you know what I mean? And so we were doing that, and that was bad. That was really shitty for my liver, and my insides generally. And now I'm really kind of like aware of how bad that was. I can't really even drink properly anymore without feeling like absolute crap the next. I can't have like a drink or two without being like yuck.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of like my body's like, okay, you've had enough of that now. we're gonna just like nice and clean from now on. But I cut that out of my diet. Like as soon as I cut out, man, alcohol is so crazy. And the amount of my friends, especially over COVID, that have cut alcohol out of their body, fixed their diets, and started exercising. Like I have at least 3 friends that have lost like 30 kilos over the course of like the 6 months.
Wow, that's insane.
Just because it really is, man. And just because we haven't been going out all the time, I'm like, man, that lifestyle is hectic. Like we need to change that. But yeah, so just getting sidetracked of fucking everything. Basically, what I'm saying is that she changed my life. Gail changed my life because I am not eating those foods anymore, and my gut is now happy, and therefore my mind is a lot more clear. Because that was like one of the big things is I had brain fog like crazy.
Wow.
And a lot of us do, and it's usually from like, yeah, the foods that we eat. Like wheat is a big one. Like it's not, I'm not sure if it's gluten or whether it's the shit that gets sprayed on all of our wheat that makes our brains go fucking whatever. But, you know, it's definitely been a life changer getting like figuring out what foods affect me, listening to my body properly. And then the rewards that come from that have just been astronomical. That mixed with meditation and figuring my shit out and trying to be more grounded has led me to where I am now, I guess.
Dude, no, excuse me, my throat, Jesus. I love what you're saying, man. And here's one thing I'm curious about, because the whole food thing, that's something I haven't explored yet, but I have heard a lot about it. Do you feel like is it the process in terms of like how a lot of the stuff that you're mentioning, you kind of mentioned how like with white rice, it's very heavily processed. Is that whole process the problem, or is it the food in itself? Because sometimes when I the argument against yours, I'm not saying I'm disagreeing. I completely agree with you, but I'm saying if I were to be playing devil's advocate, some people would say, well, I mean, a lot of these foods have existed for thousands of years. Why all of a sudden is it like not good for you? That's what I hear a lot coming from the other side. In your opinion, and maybe in your knowledge and your wisdom, what do you think? Do you think is it the process, or is it the food in itself? Are we just changing as humans, or is it all the process that we do that makes the food bad?
Yeah, I feel like the industrialization of agriculture and like the food that, you know, our food industry generally has kind of messed up all of that. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not it is. There are some foods that a lot of it that, like for me, for example, that I think I'm just sensitive to because I am, and that's just the way it is. And there are things like, say, wheat, for example. I can go and have, say, go to a really nice Italian restaurant. They'll like home make their pasta, and then I'll have a bowl of that and I'll be fine. Whereas if I have like some pasta that I bought from, you know, Ralph's or like Woolies or whatever country you're in, just a supermarket, and if I had that, I would be bloated, I would be gassy, I would be like, my hands would feel oily, and I would have these reactions to shit. And that to me shows me that I think it's obviously not the food itself. It's the shit that we do to the food. So that my diet now consists mainly of unprocessed foods, and just that decision on its own has like pretty much set me up like so well. So I just eat vegetables and a little bit of meat and like grains where I can that aren't processed, and like eggs and stuff like that. And it's just, if you have the others, like the processed stuff in moderation, then it kind of doesn't matter that much. But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of just, I think it's the process, to be honest.
Interesting.
Because a lot of the shit that I'm listening to and like that I've like kind of read and all that kind of thing, it just says if it's in a packet, probably don't have it.
Wow. That's crazy. You're gonna make me have to relook at my diet. I eat pretty healthily too, and I'm actually kind of curious. Are you an active individual? Like by that I mean, are you like an athlete? Do you work out a lot, or not really?
I used to be, so before, like right now, not so much. Like I do go out for a walk every morning and a walk or a bike ride like every afternoon. I don't necessarily go to the gym anymore or do anything like that. But yeah, I do like the qigong, which is like sort of like, I guess it's you could relate it back to yoga in a way as well. Anyway, it's but like I do these different things. I do some sort of activity, but I used to be really active individual, so my body is like kind of that way inclined. So I kind of need to keep that up regardless. But yeah.
Is it just
before music? I was a cyclist and played cricket and soccer and did all this shit. But yeah, music kind of took over after that.
I love that. Wait, when you say cyclist, like you would ride these long rides, like maybe 30 plus miles?
I like my specialty was in sprinting, so I was like a track cyclist.
Oh,
I did the velodrome.
Awesome, dude.
It was a lot of fun.
Dude, I was no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're right. I was sort of like I was from a standing start. I could do like one lap, which is like 250 meters, like I was the third fastest of that in Australia at one point in time.
What? Holy shit, man! That's impressive.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I loved that kind of like that sport so fucking much. It was so much fun, dude. But I did some of the big rides too. I just wasn't good at it.
And you never thought of going into that, like competing professionally?
I did. I was competing professionally.
Oh wow.
But yeah. I was. I mean, it sounds funny, yeah, but I was like, yeah, I'm like, wanted to go to the Olympics in fucking 2000 and whatever it was, 16 or 20 or something. But I don't know. I was like 17 at that time. And I'd been doing it for a few years. And by the time I got to about 19, I was kind of
over it.
I don't know. Other things had taken my, taken my interest, I think. So,
dude, that happens.
Yeah,
though. It happens.
It does, yeah. Especially that time of my life, like there was so many things going on, and like, as it is with everybody. But yeah, there was so many things going on, and I had done a few other things before, and I think, to be honest, I think it was to do with the fact that I was kind of felt like it was really cliquey and I wasn't in a clique and I felt quite like alone in my Sprinter little world. So It was kind of, when I was a 17-year-old, it's not what you want.
No, of course not. And that's actually really interesting. Random side note, like I was a triathlete for a little while when I was in college. So I'm not a very good cyclist. Like cycling was my worst out of the three. Like I'm a decent swimmer, but I'm a very good runner. Like I run cross country all the fucking time out here. Obviously not this summer. I've been missing it because it's been so fucking hot in LA, and you've been here, so you know how hot it's been. But you know what's interesting about what you're saying is, as a young individual, you're kind of you were very good at this sport and were very promising in this sport based on what I'm hearing, and so there's this opportunity to pursue that. But at some point, you decided to not do it. And I find it very interesting that you mentioned that it was very, very cliquey. And I'm wondering, in the music / DJing world, is it not that cliquey, or at least to you, it was the music side of things, was that a much better environment for you? I'm imagining it was, because clearly you're succeeding. But at the time, I guess what I'm really asking is, why transition from a sport that, if you're number 3 in a country, a continent for that matter, that's saying something, And so while I'm happy that you transitioned to music, I guess I'm curious, like, what was the thought process there? I mean, it could have been easily that you just didn't want to do it anymore. A lot of teenagers, myself included, made decisions like that. You just didn't want to do it anymore. But for you, you literally walked away from something that many people would be like, what the fuck, to music, which now you're succeeding. So great. But at the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. I think back to that time and wonder the same thing myself, but it was kind of just like, it slowly just I just fell out of love with it over time. And I don't know whether it was the workload. I don't know whether it was the people. I feel like it was the people, to be honest. And I feel like it was So the way that the age groups go in cycling, where at least the competitions that I was kind of a part of, it was like, say, there was an under 15 group, there was under 17, and then under 19, and then it was opens. So we'll kind of skip a year, and then once you got to like over 19s, I was versing Olympians. Like
Damn.
it was the big leagues, I think. And because I'm born in December, I was really young for all of these age groups. And so when I was like 17, I was almost going out of under 19s for whatever reason, and I was only like 17 or 18, and then I was going to be versing like Olympians after that. And I think that just started to become really daunting. And so, for example, my physique and my figure is quite like small. I weigh I don't know how much it is in pounds, but I weigh like 75 kilos kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think that's 100 and shit. I don't even know.
I think it's like 170-ish, probably 160,
I think
170.
I think it's about 160, 170. Yeah. And I needed to be like 90 kilograms, and my body just processes food like crazy. Like I could not put on weight.
Damn.
Especially that growing period in my life. And so I just had these kind of prospects and these kind of like goals that I needed to get to, that I just was trying so hard to get to, and I just couldn't, sort of thing. And yeah, I think it was just a combination of all of that, and me just going, this is like a whole lot, and then maybe having to kind of like just like slowly again just falling out of love with it because of that and the people and that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's kind of just how it happened. It was kind of like, that's life, I guess. But yeah, I did love it, and it was great aspects, and I do miss it now. But yeah, maybe that lifestyle wasn't for me. But again, maybe music. I'm always like, how the hell did I fall into this industry? Because music, again, it probably isn't my lifestyle either. I was never really one to go out and stuff. Like a lot of these producers, we're all just homebodies. So it's funny how that kind of works in. And again, with the whole click thing, I don't think that I've ever really been a part of a click, so to speak, with music either. I've always thought that I am sort of this kind of lone runner doing my own thing. And I think that does speak with the kind of like music that I make. Kind of is, I'm not one genre. And I think that, pays to that sort of thing. Like I haven't really fit in anywhere as such, but I do have like lots of amazing people and supportive people around for sure. But ever since I started DJing, again, I don't think I've really been in a clique, even since like club DJing years, like when I first started, because I started out as a DJ for the first few years, and then I got into production. Even then, I just
in your opinion, can the music world, or at least, well, the music world I know for sure, but at least in your experience in that DJ world when you first started, did it ever feel clicky at all? And to this day, does it feel clicky at all? Because like you mentioned, you do kind of do your own thing, which I absolutely love. I love that you're like this lone wolf kind of thing, and you seem comfortable with it. But in your experience, do you feel like it can be kind of clicky?
Yeah, I feel like anything can be kind of clicky, but music was, back then, I think it was probably more clicky, I suppose. And I'm wondering if the word is clicky, or whether I just didn't quite fit into whatever was going on. But
that could be
you know what I mean? Like but yeah, I mean, like now I think being sort of 2020, it's kind of like everyone's really a lot more open-minded, and it's not as sort of like, to use the word again, clicky. I don't think it's that bad anymore, but maybe I just have completely stopped looking out for that because I don't care anymore.
I love that. No, and I'm curious, did you ever care about that? I mean, I feel like it's something that human beings naturally care about, especially when you're doing something that you love or trying to succeed at. It sounds like you are, again, I kind of go back to what I said at the beginning. You seem very content, but you also seem very well grounded for many different reasons. And part of me wonders if, at that time, did you want to sort of be part of a group and you just learned to be alone, or to like embrace who you are, or did you ever care? Like, you were just like, whatever. I do my own things I do my own thing at all times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I absolutely cared. Yeah, definitely. I think it is, like you say, it's an innate human reaction and emotion to want to be part, because we're social as fuck. That's what we are. It's like, that's how we survive. So
I mean, if this pandemic is any example of like how people can get when you're stuck inside of a building for months. Jesus.
Yeah. It's hectic. I just did that 2-week quarantine coming back in, and yeah, it was wild. Like there was no fresh air, no balcony. I couldn't see anyone for 2 weeks. It was hectic. It's this like solitary confinement type thing, and you go, okay, now I know why this is like the worst punishment you can get in
Yeah.
prison type shit.
You
It's
can go
just like,
fucking crazy,
yeah,
dude.
you need people, man. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But yeah, I definitely wanted to be in cliques. Like that's why, back early on those days, like you try and follow trends and you try and make what everyone else was making to try and like sort of fit into that kind of like flow of everything. And after a while, I think, yeah, it's kind of I've learned to just be okay with what I'm doing and the direction I'm taking and whatever direction that is or isn't. I think it's it's just been kind of good to know. No, I still don't even know what I'm doing, to be honest. But yeah, but I'm more comfortable with that now anyway. It took years though. It took years to figure that out.
Yeah. How old are you, if I can ask?
28.
You're 28. Wow, you don't seem like you're a 28-year-old. You seem like you're at least in your mid 30s. I mean, I'm not talking about look wise. I'm talking about the way you think, which is a good thing, man. It's a very good way to be. I guess what I'm curious about then, since you do seem very comfortable with doing your own thing, I'm wondering when it comes to music and actually making some of the cool work that you make, because you are very individualistic. Like, I don't know where to peg you in terms of genres. It seems like you legitimately just kind of go for whatever it is that you want to do. How do you go about creating stuff? Like when you actually sit there and try to make some music, do you have any, like, do you come with ideas? Do you get inspired by random people and then want to do something? Or do you just legitimately, I don't know, maybe you have a very spontaneous brain. It just wants to do what it does. I'm curious though, like how does your workflow look like? I guess that's the general question.
It's very I guess inspiration based in terms of it's like what am I kind of feeling at this point in time, because of the fact that I don't need to follow I'm not bogged down by say I'm a melodic dubstep artist and I need to do that because that's what everyone expects of me. That is kind of terrifying and also a good thing at the same time, because I can kind of write whatever I will sort of feel like, make it sound like me, because that's I'm writing it and that's the way it's going to come out. And then it's going to be okay to release that because that's what people kind of are slowly learning of what I'm doing. Like that was an issue to begin with for the first few years. For me, I felt like it was an issue anyway, because I was like, I'm just confusing people here. I don't know if they know what they're going to expect or not expect. And I felt like that was potentially, like an issue for branding and all that kind of stuff. And but I mean, it's turned out to be pretty cool because now everyone's really catching on to that. The comments that I see now are kind of like, yeah, he started out as a mid-tempo artist that I really liked, and now it's like, I don't know what he's going to do, and it's fucking awesome. And I'm like, okay, great. People are kind of okay with the fact that I'm doing whatever, because I guess I'm comfortable with my abilities now, especially to do those things. So it is very much like, hey, what am I really feeling right now? But I did this project when I was in the quarantine for 2 weeks. And basically I just like wrote music every day in the same project on top of like one after the other. And just made this really long sort of piece of music. And the cool thing about that was it really opened up my creativity to say, like, literally whatever you're feeling at this fucking moment in time on this day, like, put that down. Don't overthink it. No, like, it's completely raw. There's unfiltered. There's no A&Ring. I didn't even show my manager the whole time. There was no feedback from anybody. So it was really, really like, it's a really raw sort of show of what was going on in my brain over this 2 weeks. And that taught me a lot about what I am actually capable of doing, and what I am sort of feeling each day is seriously different, because the entire thing is fairly mixed up. There's a lot of breakbeats kind of shit in there. There was like one section where every day I was on my guitar, but there's one section where I like went full kind of like distorted metal for like a solid minute.
I love
kind
that
of thing, and was able to I was able to get that down and go, oh shit, and it gave me the opportunity to explore those avenues that I wouldn't, because I'm like, I wouldn't do that normally, because that's not Blanke. That's not like, I don't think people would accept that as a fucking song for me or whatever. So, but now I'm like, oh, maybe I can actually figure out a way to put this in a song somehow, and people will go, fuck, that's pretty cool. And it surprised me because I go, oh, I could actually do that. And I have ways of making it better now because like I literally only spend like a day on each of these sort of like segments. And if I had like a couple of weeks or, obviously just my normal schedule to like look into doing this, I could make it even cooler. But the spontaneity of it all was really good because it was a great exercise for me to just let shit flow and let shit come out. And now I can come out of it on the other side and go, okay, it's not as scary because opening up a project is terrifying.
Yeah. Yes, it can be.
with nothing there. You know what I mean? I've talked to a bunch of people, a bunch of producers that are just the same sort of way. Like there's another guy who I speak to, and he's got sort of like gut issues as well. And he's like, man, I can't even write something because the stress that I feel from my brain, your brain and your gut are like so connected that if you feel stress, you'll feel nauseous and you can't end up writing because your brain just goes completely foggy. And I'm like, dude, it's debilitating sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was cool to be able to do this and then be less afraid of the blank canvas, I suppose.
Wow. Holy shit. So excuse me. So you feel like being able to just kind of do whatever you wanted, just put whatever you wanted on this metaphorical wall, right? That ultimately has developed this brand new confidence that you have to make new music. I'm curious, what are some of I'm not sure if you can even say genres, but like what are some of the elements that you started experimenting with that just kind of came to you? Like you mentioned metal, you mentioned like guitar. Is there other genres that you normally don't touch that you were like, fuck it, let's try it?
Yeah. There was I guess the repeating patterns throughout the whole thing would be like reverberated piano, like beautiful piano melodies, guitar and breaks. And so like I was able to explore a lot of like 115, 20 like BPM, not house, but like that kind of break beat sort of thing.
Yeah.
Did a lot of like liquid, like drum and bass kind of feeling stuff.
I love that.
It was very much like I fell into a very chill kind of flowy vibe about halfway through. And like the second half, I love the second half so much because it kind of all flows really well together. And it like has this really listenable sort of vibe to it. And I think that's potentially a byproduct of COVID because, it's hard to write bangers when when there's no shows to kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, man. I mean, the audience and the people around actually contribute quite a bit to that like energetic approach to music. When you don't have that, where do you get that from?
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's I didn't think it would affect me that much, and now like I'm the arse end of all of this, and I'm like, oh man, it's a lot easier to write more songwriting stuff, more like melodic, which is great because it's super listenable. People can play it over and over again and not get sick of it, and it's not too abrasive and all that kind of stuff. Whereas a lot of the stuff I was doing was pretty intense. So it's really cool to be able to have been able to explore that side because melody has something I'm becoming more and more like obsessed with, and more like I know I'm getting better at it. And this came at a really good time because I was able to kind of like I guess one, flex that muscle a little bit more, but also like work that muscle at the same time in ways that I haven't really been able to before, because I was making new shit every day and was kind of forced to do that, whereas usually a lot of us get into this sort of procrastinating kind of
I know, man.
We don't,
I know.
And we like to create something new every single day is not exactly a feasible option.
Well, it's like working out, dude. You gotta just do it. I mean, it's very hard to like really sit there and make yourself do it and do it well. That's two different things.
Yeah. You're so right there. Yeah, absolutely. To do it like well with proper technique and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can bang it out and do a shitty job, but that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your awesome approach to music because you are absolutely right. Like I think, and this is just my own perspective on the music industry as a whole. Like it's so easy to get boggled down or get like to be classified as a genre, because it's kind of part of the strategy. No matter what genre you're in, whether it's pop, whether it's DJing, EDM, jazz even, which is, by the way, the world where I come from, it's you see,
Oh, no way.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of where a lot of my musical stuff came from there. Now, not so much anymore, but like I learned a lot of that when I was younger. But that point is, you kind of learn about people because of the genres they play. Like that is a absolute fact, and it's very common. And I feel like it can be very, very scary for anybody that's trying to quote unquote make it, or anyone who's trying to make music. You know, when you're out there experimenting and doing random shit, you constantly hear that opinion from people being like, oh, well, you got to stick to one thing or stick to two things so that people know what you're about. But what's beautiful about your story, and again, from the music that I've heard from you, it's just amazing how it's worked out for you. How, I don't know, again, if it was intentional or not based on your story, but like you legitimately carved out your own, I guess you can say Blank is kind of its own genre, you know, in a weird way. Like you just kind of do what you want to do, and you kind of managed to surpass that fear that most people never get over, and for good reason too. I'm not saying that it's a wrong thing. It's just, it's very hard to quote unquote make it by doing a whole bunch of random shit, you know, but you are somehow thriving.
Totally.
And it's fucking amazing, dude.
That's amazing. Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, like that's exactly how I would sort of put it. I wouldn't say Blank was its own genre, but like I would say that, you know, I want to sound like me. I want to sound like Blank. I don't want to sound like dubstep. I don't want to sound like mid-tempo, and I don't want to sound like, you know, melodic, whatever. It's like when you hear me, whatever that is, I want it to be like people go, okay, that's Blank. It just sounds like him. And I think that like people do want to kind of get more into that, and I feel like that is an option, and that is like a real thing that people that artists can sort of strive towards, because no matter like I've been able to practice all these genres because I was able to get to do them, but no matter what like producers make, it's going to sound like them regardless, because of all the tiny little decisions that we make along the way when we're creating. It, like you could give the same, you know, they've done this heaps before, like the same 4 producers, 4 different samples, one sample, and say, hey, make a song out of this, and each producer is going to sound like themselves. They're not going to sound like that sample.
Right.
They're going to sound like them because of all the little tiny decisions. The amalgamation of all of those things put into one that ends up making you sound like you. And I think people overthink that a little bit too much. Whereas like now I'm kind of like, I can go in and make whatever, and no matter what kind of like sort of genre it is, it'll still have my flavor to it because I made it. And I think that that's kind of like the beauty of that. And I want that to be stronger as I continue on. And it's taken years for that to develop. But now I'm sort of going, okay, I'm just gonna make stuff, and it's gonna hopefully sound like me.
I think it does, man. Anytime you put something out, I always feel like it always sounds like you. And I bring this up, you know, and I think it's a good way to kind of start ending the episode. It's important because I do feel like with, you know, I can talk about this for hours, honestly, but with like the way the industry is and the way, you know, social media, the internet, whatever, God damn, this throat. It's just not my day. Jesus. I guess what I'm saying is, you know, based on what I've seen and all these up and coming artists that I see all the time, there's all these obstacles that you have to go through and kind of beat it, and in order to make it. And what I see end up happening is a lot of the times people just tend to compromise, which I think it's smart and it's wise. But very rarely do I see someone like you who's very much like, I'm not saying you don't face the same obstacles, but you have very much taken a lot of those obstacles and things that normally would keep people at bay. And you kind of look at it, you're like, I want to do my own thing. And it works out. And I love that, because I feel like that is the way it should be. And I hope that it inspires others to just take your example and understand that it's not easy. You know, it takes a couple years to come to terms with it, but clearly it's working out. And I think it can work for almost everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not, for sure. Like, I mean, what it does is it kind of opens you up to be able to flow with like musical trends and all that kind of thing as well. Say like, you know, Skrillex is kind of, you know, he's been around for how long now? And it's because he's adaptable, and he's, it's one of his strong points is he's able to, you know, do kind of whatever and still sound like Skrillex, and surpass all of these kind of trends and like flow with them. And I think that's kind of attests to where he is now.
I love it, man. My man, Blank, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you willing to share your insight. For a second there, we were having a spiritual interview here, which
It was longer than a second, but I like it.
I loved it. I loved everything about it, man. To kind of start ending things, I know that you mentioned that you were working on this like long project over the quarantine. What other projects do you have working on the horizon that you want to come out, that you're going to be putting out anytime soon? Maybe some performances coming up in the very, very distant future. I don't know. Talk to me a little bit about the stuff you've got going on.
Yeah. So the project is kind of the big thing at the moment. That'll be rolling out over the next couple of weeks over the next week as of when we're recording this. And I guess there's a lot of stuff going on for the next 6 months, in terms of like, we've got really cool like live stream ideas while I'm in Australia, and I've got a couple of remixes that are coming out. I really want to work on, really get stuck into work on an EP for a certain label, which I haven't worked with yet, which I'm really excited about. And just trying to think of what else. I mean, there's a bunch of original work that I'm like really sort of stoked on. And yeah, I don't want to give too much away right now, but there's some pretty really cool shit going that I've got. Yeah. but the quarantine project is something I'm really excited about. And I think it'll preface a lot of the stuff that I've got coming up.
You are a very, very amazing human being. You're incredibly talented. I love your style, and I honestly loved talking to you. I think your story is going to inspire tons of people to get out and just be themselves, which is, at the end of the day, the best thing that we can do for people.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. This is a great chat.